Welcome to The Explainer. Today, we're going to crack open the code, so to speak, on Islamic law, a sophisticated system that's been guiding people for over 1,000 years. So you might be thinking, how does a faith that's 1,400 years old have anything to say about stuff like cryptocurrency or AI ethics? That's a great question, and it's going to be the perfect starting point for our discussion today. Okay, so here's the game plan. We're going to start with the big picture, the overall framework. Then we'll dive into the actual rules, the tools scholars use to figure them out, the why behind it all, and finally, some really cool golden rules that make it all practical. To make this super easy to grasp, we're going to use a really helpful analogy. I want you to think of Islamic law as this massive, incredible, and purpose-built building. Yeah, this building metaphor is going to be our guide through this whole thing. So picture it. You've got this divine foundation, right? On top of that is a structure built by humans. And the builders, they're using a specific set of blueprints, and the whole thing has a clear purpose for the people inside. Keep that picture in your head, because we're going to come back to it. All right, let's get to it. First things first, we've got to understand the absolute bedrock of this whole system. We need to draw a really clear line between that divine foundation and the structure that's built right on top of it. Okay, this is probably the most important distinction we're going to make today. On one hand, you have Shariah. Think of that as the divine law. It's the unchangeable foundation straight from the Quran and Sunnah. Then you have Fiqh, and Fiqh is the human part. It's the building itself. It's all the knowledge and the practical rules that scholars have carefully figured out by studying those divine sources. So that begs the question, right? How do these scholars actually build this structure of fiqh? I mean, they're not just making stuff up. No way. They have a whole toolkit, a set of architect's blueprints, to make sure everything is solid and true to the foundation. And that toolkit, that master plan, is called usul al-fiqh. It literally means the roots of fiqh. It's the whole methodology, the set of principles and sources that scholars use to get from the big ideas in the Shariah to the specific rules of fiqh. It's what keeps the whole process consistent and rigorous. Now, this is where it gets really interesting. Look at the tools in this kit. You have the primary sources, that's the Quran and the Sunnah, but then you have these secondary sources, which are really methodologies, things like the consensus of scholars, analogical reasoning, thinking about the public interest, even local customs. It's this beautiful balance between the divine and structured human reasoning. Okay, let's zoom in on one of the coolest tools in the box. This one's a real game changer. It's called Qiyas, or analogical reasoning. This is the secret sauce for how jurists handle new issues that the original texts couldn't have mentioned. And here's a classic example that makes it super clear. The text prohibits wine. Why? The effective cause is that it intoxicates. So, using Qiyas, scholars can say, well, if the reason is intoxication, then any substance that causes intoxication is also prohibited. See how that works? It extends the principle from one specific thing to a whole category. It's brilliant. Another incredibly important tool is something called maslahah, which basically boils down to the public interest. This gives scholars a way to create new policies that are for the public good, even when there isn't a specific text that says, go do this. And you can see this in action right from the beginning. Things we take for granted now, like minting official currency or setting up prisons, well, those aren't spelled out in the original texts, but they were seen as essential for the community's best interest. And that's a perfect example of maslahah at work. It shows how adaptable the system is. Okay, so we've got the building, which is fiqh. We've got the blueprints, usul al-fiqh. We've seen the what and the how, but that brings us to the biggest question of all. Why? What's the point of the whole building? What's its purpose? And that brings us to the soul of the law, the Maqṣad al-Shani'ah, or the higher objectives. This is the ultimate goal. The entire legal system, every single rule, is designed to protect and preserve these 5 essential things: religion, life, intellect, family, and property. This is all about helping humans flourish and preventing harm. Now, you might be thinking, wow, that's a lot to remember. And you're right. But what's amazing is that this whole deep, complex system gets boiled down into these really practical, easy-to-remember principles. Think of them as golden rules for daily life. These are called the qawaids, or legal maxims. They're like little nuggets of wisdom that guide you. Take this one. Matters are determined according to intention. It's a powerful reminder that why you do something is just as critical as what you do. Or how about this one? Hardship begets facility. I love this one. It really shows the compassionate and flexible heart of the law. It basically says that if following a rule to the letter is causing a genuine major difficulty, then the system itself provides an easier way. It's designed to help people, not to burden them. And this one, harm should be eliminated. This is just a massive foundational principle of justice. You can see its spirit in everything from modern environmental laws that prevent pollution to rules about consumer protection. The goal is always to prevent and remove harm from society. All right, we have covered a ton of ground. We've gone from that divine foundation all the way up to these practical rules you can use every day. So, let's do a quick knowledge check. I'm going to throw 3 questions up here, and I want you to drop your answers down in the comments below. Let's see what you've got. First up, what's the term for the human understanding and interpretation of the divine law? You know, the building itself. Okay, question 2. Remember our wine example? Prohibiting all other intoxicants based on that one rule is a perfect example of which legal tool. And for our final question, what do we call those 5 essential protections, like preserving life and intellect, that the ultimate goal of the entire system? You know, as we've seen, this is so much more than just a dusty old book of rules. It's a living, breathing framework for ethical reasoning. And that really leaves us with one final big thought to chew on. How could we apply these core principles, like protecting life, eliminating harm, and seeking the public good, to the massive global challenges we're all facing today? Something to think about.